Good morning. I would like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. We are situated on the traditional lands of the Yagara and Yugambeh speaking people. I'd also like to acknowledge any sorry business that might be being felt in the community at this point in time. Welcome to the City Lifestyle Committee meeting of Wednesday the 11th of June 2025. I declare this meeting open at 9:39. I would like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcast and audio recorded. Now we have a couple of leave of absences and I'll just go through them. Okay, so we have a leave of absence for Councillor Jeremiah. Can I have a mover for that leave of absence? Councillor Bannon, and a seconder with Councillor Russell. Can I have a show of hands? Support. That has been carried by everyone in the room except for the Mayor.
Abstain. Reasons for leaves of absence should not include advertising of mobile offices.
And it would have been helpful if included a location and date.
May as well tell people to vote for him while he's at it. That's what I'll be putting in all my leave of absence from now on.
Moving right along. We also have a leave of absence for Councillor Bradley. Can I have a mover? Councillor Stamp. A seconder, Councillor Bannon. Can I have a show of hands? That has been carried by everyone in the room. And we have a leave of absence for Councillor Fraser. Can I have a move of Councillor Bannon? A seconder of Councillor Stamp. Show of hands. That has been carried by everyone in the room. Okay, councillors, there is now a motion displayed on the screen to confirm the previous minutes, and it's that the minutes of the City Lifestyle Committee meeting held on the Wednesday 14th of May be confirmed. Do I have a mover for this motion? Councillor Bannon, seconded by Councillor Stemp. Show of hands in support. That has been carried by everyone in the room. I now refer to the declarations of conflicts of interest. Do any councillors wish to declare a conflict of interest today for any of our agenda items? There being none, we'll move along to our first report. That is report item 6.1, Everleigh Sports Park Court Precinct. This is a public report with confidential attachments. I'd just like to advise councillors that we'll get through the public part of it. If you have any questions that relate to the confidential component of this report, we will have to move into confidential before we ask those questions.
Sorry, Mr.
You
Chair.
have a question,
Yeah,
Councillor?
sorry. Why is it confidential? There'd be a reason, but just because it's only public money in quotes, I'm just not sure why it's confidential.
Presenting Manager, Mr. Ben O'Brien, would you like to answer that question before we begin speaking on the report?
Through the Chair, yes, there's matters pertaining to Council's budget, and as no agreement potentially has been entered into, there'd be commercial in confidence by releasing a budget before you've even got quotes. The other item is the original statement of intent that Council endorsed was a confidential attachment, and this report in the confidential attachments speaks to individual projects within that statement of intent.
With that being said, could the Sports and Community Infrastructure Manager, Mr. Ben O'Brien, please present your report?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, councillors. Yes, the report before you today discusses a proposal presented to Council by a developer regarding Stage 2 of the Everleigh Sports Park. Council is part of this development, and the development approval headed by EDQ includes court sports. Working with the developer, our planning team, and utilising the network plan, determined that pickleball courts, along with a combination of tennis and volleyball courts, are much needed to service this region of the city. It is our understanding as part of that development approval, the courts are included, but lighting and amenities are not included in that development approval, and that is the opportunity that has been presented to us by the developer. In regards to the court sports, it's heavily focused on pickleball, which is, as you probably may or may not be aware, one of the faster growing sports across the country. I think membership or participation included by about 50% last year. The reason this is coming to you is that this particular project is not included in the original statement of intent that council endorsed, and therefore I, as manager, have no authority to prioritise this in or out, and thought best due diligence is to present it to council for whether they want to consider including it into the statement of intent or not. Included in the report to help with the discussion was pros and cons around lighting that facilitates, extends use hours. Pickleball is a particular sport that is attractive to the full age spectrum, young through to older, so it can accommodate people playing at night, so lightings would extend the utilisation of a facility. We've also put in information around amenities, whether amenities that specifically service a sporting precinct versus other amenities that are linked to a clubhouse 250 metres away or a park area 450 metres away, and what does that level of service look like? In the report, we've provided 3 options for council's consideration. The first option is to progress with prioritising the lighting and the amenities. The pros and cons, super high level pros and cons are if you enter into this with the developer, there's probably cost savings around about 300 to 500k in regards to procurement and design efficiencies aligning with that construction program. Yes, you get the additional utilisation of both day and night at 17 to 25 courts, or the ability to ramp up 25 courts with painting lines on the tennis and volleyball courts. It would become the largest pickleball facility to date in Australia, and therefore would likely attract the potential for some tournament play through either Pickleball Queensland or Pickleball Australia. The risks are that it would require immediate funding and coordination with the developer, and you get your typical construction risks and overruns that may go into that. Option 2 is a hybrid version where, for your consideration, you can fund lighting with no amenities. The benefits are it's a lower cost impact, an impact within the statement of intent. The risks will be what does servicing amenities to that facility look like, utilising those existing amenities in the park. Option 3 is, as this is a new development, and again in a growing community, it is probably somewhat ahead of its time and or population demand needs. Therefore, option 3 says don't progress with the lighting and the amenities. We will still get the pickleball courts. They will still be able to people will still be able to play on those pickleball courts, but it would be constrained to daylight hours only. And then on the next revision of the statement of intent, we'd be looking to across better data is potentially get scheduled in the medium to long term of that time frame for the statement of intent. The cons, again, apart from not being able to play at night and potentially additional distance to amenities, is you lose the opportunity for a cost saving of roughly 300 to 500k at this point in time. And just to amplify the Chair's comments, I note that there is information in there around either the budget or specific projects mentioned that were in the original statement of intent, and the original statement of intent was a confidential attachment to the network plan report. Should councillors want to discuss any of those 2 items further, I would refer you back to the Chair whether or not the meeting needs to go into confidential. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, with that in mind, we'll begin the batting with Councillor Lane.
Thank you very much. And thanks for your report, Ben. I'm confused in that the statement of intent is confidential, but the attempt to put something onto the statement of intent is not confidential. I don't understand that. If we're talking about this project, which I don't care either way, like none of mine are on the statement of intent, so this is, I got no stick in this game, but I'm just curious, why are these confidential and this is not? I don't understand that. Either the SOI is confidential or it's not confidential, but you can't pick and, in my thought, you can't pick and choose what should be confidential and what shouldn't be confidential. Does that make sense? Like, I can't speak to any of the other items in this confidential one to ask questions, except for in confidential, but publicly, we can speak about putting this onto a confidential list. It doesn't make sense. Yep. I don't understand. Sorry, I don't understand.
No, I appreciate it. It's a great question, Councillor Lane. The best answer I can provide you is at the point in time of preparing the report. We are trying to make as much information as possible open to the public. So that's why we've crafted the report and given as much as... I'll get to that. Can I get to that? Thanks. So I've made as much of the report as possible open to the public, and then considering what is at this point in time confidential, because the original statement of intent was in the confidential attachment, I can't just automatically then bring that statement of intent through this report out into the open. It is something that post this report in committee, I can work with the director to see if we can release that absolutely out into the open. But when I was preparing the report, the only reason why it is considered is because it was a confidential attachment. You make a really good point, and we'll see if we can correct that. And so my answer is not a strategic answer. It is at a point in time that piece of information was a confidential attachment, and that's why anything referred to that is referenced in this confidential attachment. The rest of this information is absolutely available for the public.
Okay, my last question is does this report circumvent the waiting list of lighting projects for other divisions to fulfil this one? And again, just to be clear, no Division 2 projects are listed anywhere on anything, so I'm happy with that.
No, great question. So what we've identified in this report is in largely 2 years out from now and the third year out. So we're in 25, 26. No, what are we in now? 25, no, 24, 25. So in 26, 27 and 27, 28, there is quite a substantial project that will not be proceeding, that has presented a current gap in our program. And largely we either have two options. Option one is there's this opportunity along with other projects we've suggested we could bring forwards to fill that gap if that project can't go ahead, or under the resolution of council previously back in October that's mentioned in this report, we have a gap in that program, and we would otherwise, if we weren't to do this, bring projects forwards to fill that gap in that program. So it won't push others out, it's just how we choose to bring projects forwards now to fill that gap.
Thank you very much. There's no consideration that whatever funding amount can be put back into general revenue.
The sports infrastructure program is funded through loan funding.
Councillor Bannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to get on the confidential because it's about the figures. Yeah, I just don't ask questions and breach that. Yeah, it's hard, but it's all about actual costings.
Okay, does any other councillors have any public facing questions? Okay, so what we may do is we'll go through our public questions first, and then we'll move into confidential just to keep things flowing. Councillor Stemp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report. I just want to know whether you know as to why the scope of the project didn't include lighting and amenities, because I would have expected if it was for pickleball that, yes, they do play at night time, and I guess if I was designing a project, you'd make sure you'd think about all the things that you might need for such a large, it's quite a few courts and so forth. So just curious if we know why it didn't include that scope.
Brilliant question, Councillor Stemp. The best answer I can give you is they're not required to under their development approval, and the governing body of that development approval is EDQ.
Okay, so the scope of the project was purely the courts, but there was nothing additional to that. Okay.
Yep. And again, that would be a decision then for EDQ whether EDQ decided to mandate these extra components or facilities as part of that project.
And we can't go back. I don't know. Can we go back and ask, or no? No. Just thought I'd ask. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a few people on the list. So, Councillor St Ledger.
So the developer's going to build the courts regardless. That's happening. With that time and that money that's been freed up, we've obviously got lots of facilities right across the city that need to go from halogen to LED and different things like that. Is there the option of distributing that across those? And like you said, the pickleball courts are going to be there, available and usable within daylight hours, and it's coming ahead of time. Is there the option of looking at distributing those funds amongst the clubs that are going to be across the whole city left out in the dark, for better terms, with halogen fittings and stuff, because they are not going to be available in the next 12 to 18 months?
Thank you, Councillor St Ledger. Not preempting council decision, but if council were not to proceed with scheduling the Everleigh Sports Park Court 2 proposal in that short term, then under the existing authorisation, yes, the Sports and Community Infrastructure Branch would be looking to bring forwards some of those at-risk sports fields that require the upgrade to LED. My understanding is, from a regulatory perspective, the manufacture of those halogen components has been discontinued, no longer. So there is a supply, but it is running out. So they'll continue to operate, but should they fail, we may not be able to replace them, and we'll be rushed into it. So we've been working to progress a lot of sports lighting projects, and certainly with our state and federal government partners, looking for grant funding as well for these technologies. And given they're the biggest at-risk infrastructure from a technological change or a regulatory change, yes, we would be looking to bring forwards otherwise sports lighting projects to fill that gap in the 26, 27, 27, 28 year in the program.
And you say pickleball is growing and you hear about it. Have they got any cash? Like, are we going to them? If the developer's going to build the biggest facility in Australia, like, have we gone to Pickleball Australia or Queensland, and I've got no idea how their structures work, and gone, what are you going to contribute? What are you going to, because they're going to want to use a venue like that and utilise it. So just looking at ways, is there a way where, let's get the developer to pay for it. Let's get Pickleball Australia to help with the lights, and let's look after our facilities that we've got citywide that are going to be able to have some lighting that way.
Happy to. We received a proposed contribution from Pickleball Australia this morning, and I'd be happy to share that amount. We haven't vetted it yet in confidential when we jump in there shortly.
Councillor Wilcox, you had something to respond to Councillor St Ledger? Yep.
Just to add, I've got a letter that I can table in confidential to show that.
Okay, actually, Councillor Wilcox, your question is now.
Thank you. Ben, with the proposed 7 netball courts that got changed to pickleball courts, were the netball courts going to be lit, or were they just going to be netball courts?
Thanks, Councillor Wilcox. I just need to consult with my sports planning coordinator here. My understanding, the netball courts were not going to be lit originally.
So we had a proposal for 7 netball courts, potentially, that weren't going to be lit anyway. When kids train at night, they would have been training in the dark anyway. So it's a bit of a moot point because they wouldn't have been able to use them. My kids used to train at Jimboomba, and past 5 o'clock, we were struggling until those courts were lit only just very recently and that sort of thing. So even with the netball courts, they would have struggled to have trained there. In the afternoons and that sort of thing. Part of this is the joys of having a PDA and having EDQ as the approver over this development front. It would be great to have the developer chip in a hell of a lot more money and that sort of thing, but they're already doing the courts, the fields, everything around it. I'm happy to talk in confidential with some more funding proposals and stuff like that, but this is something that needs to be activated so that we don't have a repeat, no offence, of Yarrabilba sitting there for years, because all they had was the fields with a block of toilets, and they sat pretty much dormant for years, not activated as well of what they should have been. We've now got the Everleigh AFL, which is activated from the get-go. On Monday we were there for an awards presentation because it won an amazing award, which I won't go into because it's going through ordinary council next week. But the whole thing is you need to activate these from the get-go, because otherwise they will sit dormant and you won't be able to use the facility at night. But I'm happy to talk more in confidential.
Councillor St Ledger, does your question relate to what was just spoken? Okay, I'll give you an opportunity to speak.
Agree with what Councillor Wilcox says. It's the joys of a PDA. You kind of just sparked me there. You're right. So can we move that cash and can we put it at the new AFL fields at Yarrabilba so we can build them a clubhouse, so we can then and then we'll run a derby between them and. But because this is, in all seriousness, I can see what Councillor Wilcox is saying. It's a concern that happens in the PDAs, and we've got one sitting there right now as well, where we're going to have a brand new state-of-the-art facility delivered by a developer, approved by EDQ with just toilets. So we're going to have a club going in there, and we're going to be left with the burden of figuring out how to get them operational with change room facilities, canteens, those sorts of things. So if that's an option as well, it's already lit too, by the way, so it's ready to go. It just needs a clubhouse.
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Wilcox and Councillor St Ledger. It is a great strategic conversation, one that we wrestle with regularly from a planning perspective, is juggling around the need for infrastructure ahead of its demand timeline in these newer communities versus maintaining or providing the infrastructure in those existing. We absolutely need infrastructure in these communities. As to what level, because it is ahead of schedule effectively. So what level do we need it in regards to just a field? Do we need field amenities and lighting? So it is fully utilised, but may not have the full population to support it and to activate it and get our desired utilisation rates to get that early return on investment. I don't know that there's a perfect answer, but just wanted to say thank you. It is a great conversation, one that we are wrestling with.
Mayor Raven.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I've got some questions that'll need to be confidential, but we'll do the public ones while we're out here, Ben. So, how do we get to this point with this project? Like, so we've got a project that falls out because it's non-viable. So there's a lot of money that's sitting there. This project is not within that, like within the sector, if you like, for where the old project was. It isn't serving the same sport. So it's a completely different sport in a completely different part of the city with a much smaller catchment for the people it's going to benefit. So how does a report come that just serves this without considering all the other options? Because I thought the point of SOIs was that if one falls out, the next one just slips up.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So yes, with the statement of intent, if there's a gap, we'll prioritise typically in order through that. I suppose this report comes up purely from coincidence of timeliness. The opportunity came to us. We could either present it to council with there's a gap if they wanted to do it. On the flip side, I think we've indicated in option 3, if you don't want to do this, on our next statement of intent review, we would schedule it into the medium long term, and then we would continue to prioritise typically in the order of the statement of intent to address the gap.
Because if you start getting to a point where projects fall out of statements of intent and then councillors realise they can just slot something in, then every council would want a chance to suggest a facility in their area that they think is of need, and it becomes a competitive sort of like, well, if we're going to put something in, what is the best use of that fund? Because at the moment this is opportunistic, which is fine, but that means it's not strategic because it's just opportunistic. And there's some really good numbers. I know pickleball's growing really quickly. 93,000 Australian participants is pretty awesome for a young sport, but like netball, which it's replacing, 1 million participation, really high. Women and young men, women's participation in sport, growing participation in young men and older men, my age bracket, yay. But then basketball, 1.3 million participation, like, I don't need to tell you, one of the most popular sports in the country for grassroots participation. Huge demand every part of the city where people go, I want more basketball courts. Why aren't there lights on the basketball courts you've got? So I sympathise with the idea that you would install courts that don't have lights of any sport. It seems counterintuitive. Mind you, Mirvac, who do a great job, and as Councillor Wilcox said, we were out there for their award-winning facility yesterday. They made a really lazy $2 billion profit in the last financial year. What are they contributing? Because they will get a return on investment from having lights on these courts. Great to hear that there's something coming from Pickleball Queensland or Australia. I'd love to hear what that is, because that helps. That was one of my questions, so I look forward to the confidential part of the chat. But my struggle is that as mayor, I'm forever trying to understand the whole of the city and the priorities that best where to deploy capital in the most effective way. Opportunistic doesn't hit my strategic tick box. And if we looked across the city, I'm sure we could find a whole bunch of opportunities that are just sitting there. They just haven't popped up for this process. So I'd like some more time to consider what we could do, unless it's like such a home run, because it's such an easy lineup where there's a whole bunch of free money being chucked at us that we wouldn't get otherwise. Mirvac's putting in, which is essentially what Everleigh was. Everleigh was, hey, we've got all this money for a project that's not viable anymore. the state's willing to put in, AFL Queensland's willing to put in. Mirvac put way more into the grounds than they needed to. They didn't help us, other than getting us a good price. They didn't help us that much with the clubhouse, but they definitely helped us with the fields, because they're above and beyond any other field in the country based on that last award. That's great, but it doesn't feel like this has got that same confluence of money and enthusiasm. Am I missing something?
Correct. The level of stakeholder engagement is inconsistent with stage one. Timeliness, they're about to start construction, and then is our due diligence whether we knock it on the head as officers, or whether we bring a due diligence, which is the reason behind bringing it to council. Council, otherwise, it's coming to council because we had no ability to act on it because it's sitting outside the state of intent. Just the moment, I'm fairly aware that Mirvac did contribute financially also to the clubhouse.
Sweet, even better. See, they leaned in on the clubhouse too. Great, thank you. And I'm not knocking the officers for bringing it up. I think it's good that you bring it to council for consideration. Just think it opens up a whole bunch more questions than it does otherwise. The noting that my mind is open because we haven't gone into confidential yet, I'm leaning towards just lighting what's there, rather than going the whole shebang, unless there's a whole bunch of money coming in to help us with the whole shebang. A 10% saving isn't really enough to get me across the line to move funding from one side of the city to the other for a sport that is growing but still reasonably young, and there's nothing to stop us from upgrading it later on as the sport continues to build, and I'm sure they'll have more funding in the long term. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Lane.
Thanks for the second chop. So on page 14, it has the options analysis, and I'm just wondering whether we can speak to that. So I'm kind of the view that lighting something up is pretty important, and I have no concerns with that. And noting that as part of the report, I thought it said that anyway. So there's a price tag on that, and I'm not so keen on the toilets, and the reason why is one of my local clubs has been living out of Portaloos for 3 years, and they're not on the SOI at all. They're a viable club with over 200 members currently, young families, and so they've been living out of Portaloos and portable change rooms as well, almost for the entire length of time that I've been a councillor. And that was paid for out of local infrastructure program fund. So option 2 says partial project scheduled, provide new lighting only. Access to toilet facilities is restricted to Everleigh Parks and or clubhouse opening hours. Have there been discussions with the clubhouse about opening the toilets up to other sporting groups, or is that not the way things are done? We don't share?
The intention, great question, Councillor. The intention behind the project risk in that public component of the report is to say that the clubhouse toilets are under a lease, so therefore the leaseholder will open the toilets typically when they are open, which may not be, they may have inconsistent hours to a typical park toilet. Sometimes you'll find that if the leaseholder is operating their fields till 9 o'clock at night, unlike a park, the toilets will be open till 9. That's just that the council typically won't control the opening hours of the toilet. So the availability of those toilets would be at the discretion of the leaseholder and obviously the club for those toilets, that's all.
Well, again, and obviously we've got to go into confidential, but given that my local groups could manage to do with Portaloos for a couple of years, I'm sure that if we looked at option 2 as an option to light them up so that they can play at night, they can make do with Portaloos until we've got that finance. And then maybe other clubs like my club can actually get new lights. That would be lovely, even though they're not on the statement of intent. So it's the way I'm leaning at the moment.
Okay, so councillors have expressed a desire to discuss the confidential component of this report. So a proposed resolution to move this matter into confidential will be displayed on the screen. Do I have a mover for this motion? Councillor Murphy has moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bennon. Can I have a display of hands who would like to move into confidential? That has been carried by everyone in the room. welcome back, everyone. We've just moved out of closed session. I'd like to advise that the audio recording has begun again. Yep, and we are now being webcast. We will begin by tabling an attachment, which is a letter from Pickleball Australia, addressed to the area councillor Natalie Wilcox. Oh, yep. Okay. And that has been moved by Councillor Wilcox, and I don't believe we need a seconder for that. No. Show of hands. That has been tabled. Okay, councillors, we have a recommendation, and I'll give you a second to read the recommendation. So there are 5 items in that recommendation. I note that there is an option in the option. There is an option in clause 3 within that. Do I have a mover for the recommendation? It has been moved by Councillor Wilcox. Do I have a seconder? It has been seconded by Councillor Murphy. Can I have a show of hands in support? That has been lost. I'd like to go around the room to see how each person voted. Councillor Lane.
Against.
Councillor Russell.
Against.
Councillor St Ledger.
Against.
Councillor Jackson.
Against.
Mayor Raven.
Against.
Councillor Bennon.
Against.
Councillor Stemp.
4.
Councillor Wilcox.
4.
Councillor Murphy.
4.
And I was also for. Okay, so that has been lost. So what we'll need to do now is create an alternate recommendation, which we've put on the screen right now. Okay, so I'd like you to really focus in on that clause 3 with the option. Do I have a mover?
I'll move it then.
Mayor Raven has moved. Seconder. Councillor Murphy has seconded. Can I have a show of hands in support? That has been carried by everyone except for Councillor Wilcox. How did you vote?
I will like to abstain with a reason.
Would you like to explain your reason?
Yep. I would prefer it to go to ordinary council because there are 3 councillors missing and they could be the crux of this vote.
We need to work with who is here on the day, and that is how it works. So that has been carried. Okay, so that finishes our reports for today. Does anyone have any general business for the Sports and Community Infrastructure Manager, Mr. Ben O'Brien? Mayor Raven.
Ben, given that decision, there's like some funding that's sitting in the SOI. Do we need to give you a direction to bring that back to us for consideration on how that's, or does it just flow through the SOI like normal? Like, what do we need to do with that?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Mayor. I'm always happy to take guidance from council. The resolution from October 2024 includes that, and I'll read it out, but that council authorised the Sports and Community Infrastructure Manager to commence or delay projects in this instance, Sports Infrastructure Plan Statement of Intent, typically in prioritised order to meet resource availability as detailed in the confidential attachment. I would lean into resource availability in the discussion we've had today around that halogen technology. I believe that I would be able to, from today's discussion, be able to bring forward lighting upgrade projects within the statement of intent within that resolution to fill that gap, but I'm happy to be guided by council otherwise should you wish to have a report come back.
Thank you, I'm happy with that.
Does anyone have any further general business for Manager Aubrey? Manager Aubrey, do you have any general business for us?
Happy to be led or guided by Councillor Wilcox here, but for those who weren't aware, yes, the Everleigh Sports Park, so the clubhouse that we have out there, won the AFL Football's National Ken Gannon Community Facilities Award for 2024, which is very, very impressive. My understanding, it was Mirvac and it was council and it's the state and federal government and it's AFL. And it's quite exceptional that a Queensland facility wins this award away from our AFL dominant states in Victoria and South Australia and Western Australia. So just wanted to congratulate everyone involved. There was obviously the presentation on Monday, but also acknowledge all of the involvement from Councillor Wilcox and also the staff that were involved. Very, very collaborative process. And it is out there a really good design. I call it sort of the north-south/east-west. It can scale up and scale down to community sport all the way up to Lions and Gala and festivals. And from a facility perspective, it does the east-west because of the cafe. It becomes a social hub and it does attract a lot of community, not just into that sporting realm and function. So it's a wonderfully flexible facility, very contemporary design that should be a guiding light for us into the future. So we're very proud to win that award. Thank you.
It's an amazing outcome and kudos to all involved. With there being no further questions for you, you're free to go if you'd like to. Does any of the councillors have any general business for the Director of Community and Lifestyle, Mr. Brad White? There being none, Mr. Brad White, do you have any general business for the council? I believe that concludes the agenda for today. I declare the City Lifestyle meeting on the 11th of June 2025 concluded at 11:13. Thank you.